the thing with the bonds is, if we see what's going on around the world. So, the US is on fiscal mode. The Europeans are on fiscal mode. Ursula, the head of the EU, that I can't even pronounce her surname, she was talking about a 2 trillion package today in Europe. The Chinese are talking about fiscal package. So the whole world is on like fiscal mode. So I think it's natural that the bonds are not going to be good performers again. But having said that, you kind of want to see, for all these things to work out, the bonds have to be stable, right? So if we, my whole theory about Tamagotchi Yellen, and now that I call Tamagotchi Bessent, is that there is these central bankers. Yeah. So basically, yeah, there you go. So basically, Yellen, what did she do? So the central point about this thesis is that central bankers are like Tamagotchis. They're very, very simple creatures. And there is a red line that if it crosses, they panic. And that red line, we found out what it was in October, November 2023, when we had the bond sell-off. So when the yields broke above 5, or they were breaking out, even the 10-year was breaking out, that's when Tamagotchi Yellen got triggered and acted. And she did a very dovish QRA. So the QRA was, as we remember, it's the quarterly refinancing announcement, whereby she shifted from issuing more coupons to shifting to issuing more bills. So to a degree that she would have made Evita Peron blush, because she was like Argentina style. She's like, you know what? We're going to issue bills. We're not going to issue bonds. And that put a cap on the yields at that point. And then she teamed up with her buddy Powell, who came up a few weeks later and cut 50 bips, right? He cut 50 bips just shortly after. So there was a coordinated action that capped the yields. So fast forward to today, that 5%, does it worry me now? Look, if it breaks out, you should be worried, because it's how policymakers panic. There is a red line on all those things. And that red line might be 5, it might be 5.5, because we have the fiscal the fiscal stimmy on top. But that's when Bessent becomes Tamagotchi Bessent, because there's going to be a line, and that's why the next QRA is going to be very important. Because look, Bessent was kind of, man, this is like, my favorite quote that I use on Shrubstack is that once you realize it's all nonsense, it all starts to make sense. So this is like completely the case. Whereas this is like we live in kind of like a version of Animal Farm. I keep saying it, that basically the previous guys become the new guys. The new guys make the same thing as the previous guys. So Bessent was giving crap to Yellen for issuing more bills, and for the last 6 months. And now that it's his turn, what's he going to do? He's probably going to issue more bills. So if he does that, I reckon it's going to be taken up dovishly, and maybe he puts a cap on the yields. So as my buddy Paolo Macro says, the old boss meet what is it like? Old boss meet the new boss, or new boss meet the old boss. Same thing. So basically, that's the picture on the left side. That they are the same thing. It's Animal Farm. They're just picking up from the previous. So that's number one. So the QRA is what could actually put a lid for some point. But if you start doing all these crazy things, at some point they will lose control of the long end. And that's when you really have to start worrying. We're not there yet, because I think, I use this verb, like there are ways to fraud it. There are ways to like massage it. There are ways to play around with it. And they learned from Yellen, by the way. Yellen is the queen that made all this possible. Like, I think she's like the biggest financial criminal mastermind of our century. Like, these guys would not be as smart as Yellen to make this happen. And by the way, we give thanks to Yellen, because we made a lot of money last year. I have no complaints. I'm not here to judge. I'm here to make money. Just so I'm clear. So I'm just saying, like, these guys are going to make probably the same thing, and it's probably going to last, a few quarters. And, the one thing that could derail is, number one, is the BOJ, as we mentioned earlier. The BOJ could actually do some funky stuff with the like last year. That's number one. And number two is, we got a little taste of what would happen if they fire Powell, because they really. So this week, what was the most important event? The most important event was that we got a trial balloon um, that that Trump would fire Powell, and the reaction of that day was very interesting because, yeah, so that's it, the trial balloon. So the reaction of that day was very interesting because the consensus view was that equities would go to the moon. Like I was just reading through my chats, and people were saying, I don't want to be short because the day that Powell gets fired, the market's maybe up 5%. And lo and behold, what happened? On the trial balloon, bonds sold off 1%, the dollar sold off 1%, but also equities sold down 1%. So I reckon if they actually remove Powell, that's going to be a proper shakeup for the bond market. And people that actually trade emerging markets would know that this is like a no-no. Like if you never go full Erdogan. You never go full Erdogan because he's the only guy who fires him, and every time he fires the central banker, the FX goes to the toilet, inflation goes through the roof. So that's I really hope they learned their lesson, and I'm just glad they did the trial balloon instead of going like all in. But you never know, huh? You never know.